Welcome to Hitting the Bullseye, the podcast dedicated to exploring every facet of Lyme disease, from the science of the bacteria behind the illness to the latest treatments and prevention strategies. We're here to bring you the facts and insights to navigate Lyme disease. Whether you're a patient, a caregiver, or just curious, join us as we unravel the complexities of this often misunderstood condition and hear from experts, survivors, and advocates who are shaping the future of Lyme disease care. In today's episode, we'll discuss the importance of animal reservoirs within the Lyme disease life cycle. With us today, we have Dr. Nelson, a veterinarian who has worked closely with many of the animal reservoirs for Lyme disease, Dr. Alexa, a public health expert who has worked closely with Lyme disease, and Kyle, a survivor of Lyme disease who lives in upstate New York, one of the regions where Lyme disease is endemic. Thank you for being with us today. Dr. Nelson, as you have worked with these species before, can you explain the role of animal reservoirs?
Absolutely, and thank you for having me. Animal reservoirs are the key for ticks to spread the disease. Ioxidase ticks are the vector that spreads the disease between animals and from animals to humans. Although ticks spread the disease, the source of the bacteria that causes Lyme disease are small mammals such as mice, squirrels, and ground-feeding birds. These animals are able to have the bacteria living in their bodies, but the bacteria does not cause them harm. These animals are crucial in the life cycle of the bacteria.
So these small mammals are the true culprit of the disease. How do the ticks gain the bacteria and infect others?
To understand the transmission, we must understand the tick life cycle. The eggs of the Ioxidase ticks are laid on the ground in the spring, and when they hatch in late spring, they enter the larva stage. They feed once on the blood of a small mammal, such as a mouse. During this feeding is where they can acquire the bacteria. After their first blood meal, the larva will molt in the winter, and the next spring the larvae will become nymphs and feed once again on another mammal or humans. This blood meal is how the bacteria can spread and infect other animals or humans.
Wow, ticks living their life and completing their life cycle is how Lyme disease transmits and jumps into human populations. Kyle, you have recovered from Lyme disease. Can you tell us your story?
Yes, of course. I live in upstate New York, surrounded by wooded areas where mice, deer, and ticks are everywhere. I have 3 dogs who often play outside, and I regularly check them for ticks. I spend much of my time tending to my garden, which is likely where I got the tick from. Unfortunately, I did not check myself for ticks. The next evening, I noticed the tick and went straight to the doctor, who was able to diagnose me with Lyme disease and prescribe me antibiotics to help me recover. I'm thankful to having no long-lasting complications.
Yeah, that is scary. I'm glad you were able to get the care you needed and make a full recovery. You said you check your dogs for ticks. What has made you add this to your routine?
Living in the northeastern United States, we are warned about ticks from the New York government since there are so many in the area. I take the risk of letting my dogs run around my home, and I've needed to take precautions to make sure that they are safe and do not get infected, as even domesticated animals are at risk.
You are taking great precautionary measures. This is a great way to protect yourself, pets, and others. Dr. Alexa, from a public health perspective, how are animal reservoirs important and how can we protect ourselves?
Great question, and thank you for having me. Animal reservoirs increase the spread of Lyme disease by harboring the bacteria and transmitting it to the feeding ticks. As our urban areas continue to grow and invade natural areas, we are increasing our risk of interacting with these animal reservoirs and exposing ourselves to ticks. We can protect ourselves by understanding the pathway and how we are putting ourselves at risk. Kyle said, checking for ticks on yourself after being outside, checking your furry friends for ticks too to make sure they aren't bringing them inside, and easy steps to add into your everyday routine if you live in an endemic region.
That is some great advice. To all our listeners, especially our followers in the northeastern states, I would like to thank our visitors today, Dr. Nelson, Dr. Alexa, and Kyle, for being with us and taking the time to dive into the roles of animal reservoirs and Lyme disease. To our listeners, we hope this conversation gave you some insight into the fascinating lives of these small mammals and ticks. Stay tuned to Hitting the Bullseye for more stories of innovation that could transform the way we think about medicine. Thank you for listening.